It was actually fascinating to me, Krystal, to watch this play out because I watched some of these Andrew Tate videos and all I was struck by is like, man, this has been around on the internet for like 30 years. Yeah. It's always been a feature of like message board culture, I mean, Tucker Max.
Listless, disaffected young men, like, you know, becoming enamored with like the brazen soul is kind of a tale as old as time.
It literally a tale as old as time.
I was thinking, you were talking about the ones from, you know, your
That's my childhood.
I was thinking about the whole Jackass phenomenon.
No, totally, yeah. By the way, I still love Jackass.
Yeah, it started as like, you know, started as these sort of like more underground, like skateboarding videos where they do all like this crazy shit and then it becomes like this whole thing. And those guys too have are like mellowed down.
Same thing. Viva La Bam.
YouTube channel now, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, listen,
great point.
I'm just gonna say, I haven't watched any Andrew Tate's content. I've only read articles about him and the shit that he says is truly abhorrent.
Yeah, it's bad.
Now, I don't know if they say it's taken out. It's hard for me to see how some of the shit is taken out.
He said he's playing a character and it's right. Listen, I don't
whatever. Anyway, I mean, from a free speech perspective, this one is easy for me because I don't support this kind of censorship. Right. And it seems very coordinated. Like it seems like there was a judgment made. We don't like this guy. This is a bad guy, and so we're going to axe him, rather than specific commentary that he made on their channels that violated their standards, which is always an issue for me. Like, are we just are we putting the social media platforms in a position of we're going to evaluate who you are and your whole life, and you know, if you have a criminal record or whatever, that goes to a very ugly place. So that piece is very easy for me. I think we probably have a somewhat different analysis of the sort of like crisis of men. It's similar, but not exactly the same. You know, I mean, I do see its roots as very much economic. We have as a culture, we tell men that their worth is basically what their earning power is. Sure. Are you able to like get a job, support the family, do the thing? And then we've stripped them of the ability to do that. And so you have so many young men who, you know, aren't able to have that sort of stable middle-class life that they expected to be able to inherit, that they saw, you know, maybe their grandparents living that type of, you know, having the stable job and being able to support and provide for a family. You see now things like being able to own a home, being able to get married, getting pushed increasingly out of reach and becoming like a luxury good. And so, yeah, they're looking for like who to blame. You know, like who do I take? I'm angry that this has happened to me, and you know, rather than blame myself and say there's something wrong with me, it feels better to say there's something wrong with somebody else. You know, where's the villain? Who do I blame? And so I think, you know, that can lead in a lot of really ugly directions when in reality, obviously the villain is like this neoliberal economic system that has stripped them of their ability to, even if they do the right thing and go to college and et cetera, be able to achieve that stable middle-class prosperity that is supposed to be, according to our culture, central to their value and their worth as a man.
I don't disagree with any of that. I do think there is a cultural element to it. And I don't want to sound like Jordan Peterson over here, but it's like, look, in the last 20 years, like celebration of like a masculine identity has really come under attack as a genuine like misogynist value. I, by the way, do not even think necessarily we should be like guys who are all ripped up and look like Thor and Liver King or like the ideal masculine ideal. But I think one of the reasons why this idiot Liver King is even popular in the first place, despite clearly being on some sort of steroids, is because these teenagers look at him, and I've noticed this too, like bodybuilding YouTube is one of these massive subcultures that does not exist whatsoever in like the mainstream fitness industry. All of these things that at one point were covered in like Men's Health and others have all moved onto the internet. Like the establishment, media, and the ability to provide anything to that audience is gone. And I do think a lot of that is like is almost like cultural advertiser pressure as not what's the word? It's like it's just not acceptable to be discussed, which is a bad thing.
But
I don't think it should be.
Part of why it's seen as like a zero-sum game, that as women are, you know, have opportunities opened up to them and are performing, like going to college at higher rates and achieving higher levels in terms of their careers and higher visibility and all of those things, it's seen as a zero-sum game.
Oh, I don't think it is.
Right, but the reason that I mean, that's like, that is cultural, the idea, and that is very much like based on our sort of neoliberal capitalist system, the idea that there's only so much and there's the scarcity mindset, and so if this group is gaining, it must be at your expense. Like that part to me is very cultural and creates this sense of like threaten them under attack, and it's like the bitch's fault, basically.
Listen, I don't disagree. And actually, I frankly blame a lot of lean-in feminism for a lot of this too, which is very much like, there's only 10 CEOs who are women at the top of a Fortune 500. I'm just like, all right, like, is that really the measure of like female success? You know, we've talked, it's like, oh, great, there's a female lady who's in charge of torture over at the CIA. What a victory. It's like, no, we should not look at it in those zero-sum terms. And I agree. I mean, I actually think framing it that way from the lean-in people's perspective has ignited some of the backlash.
It also limited the choices that were, you know, sort of valued and celebrated for women. Because there are plenty of women who, you know, they want to be the mom, they want to be the, you know,
a lot of them watch the show. I've seen
really like, and as mom 3, I can tell you that's a really hard job. Like, takes a lot, and is also really important societally, but it wasn't valued and elevated in that like lean-in brand of feminism. It was just like the girl boss who's climbing the corporate ladder that was celebrated and all of that. So ultimately, that's not really a healthy conception for much of anybody.
I agree. By the way, I don't think it's going to do anything. It's probably only emboldened. There'll be a lot of manosphere YouTube discussions, so I had to enter the race as well.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.